Lucas Rousek, his first game, his NHL debut, which, by the way, that was awesome. He scores a goal. He ties it up
His
at
first
1-1.
shift. His first
very
shot.
first. Talk about that. Talk about the goal that he scores and just him being in the lineup.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to be honest with you, 48, 72 hours ago, I know he was going to play if Tage couldn't go on Saturday, right?
Yep.
But he didn't play, and then he played tonight, was his debut.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest with you. I follow the Sabres relatively closely now. Obviously, I read and talk to you every week. I read what you write. I talk to you every week, but I'm not a big Rochester Amherst guy. Didn't know much about this kid.
Yep.
Tell me about him, because I'll tell you what, I mean, for being an NHL debut on Monday night, he looked pretty damn good to me.
Yeah, I really liked his game. He's been really good at Roch this season. We started seeing it coming last year, late in the season with the Amherst, where you'd see his play and he's getting better, and you're like, oh, this might be a guy now. Like, looking at him being like, this guy might get some NHL games next season. And I know Lance and I on maintenance day, cheap plug, said at the beginning of the season, before the season, even, like, Rousek was a guy we had circled that's going to get some games in the NHL this year. And, they've been healthy up front all season long. They haven't, until recently, they hadn't had any injuries up front. And, Tuck misses a few games. Thompson is, banged up now. And suddenly you're making some calls, moving some guys around, doing whatever. And, Rousek gets the call. And honestly, if Brandon Byro wasn't injured, Byro's probably the guy that gets the call.
Mm-hmm.
But Byro's hurt, so Rousek is the next guy in line. And listen, Rousek's a bit more of an offensive type player. Byro's a good two-way guy. He's a solid defender. He can score too, so like that's good. But Rousek was the call, and you know what? I love the idea of getting him in the lineup because he's similar yet different. And yes, he's a rookie, but he's like 23, 24. He's older than like all the guys. He was a 6th round pick in 2019. He was 20 years old when he was drafted. So he was a double, 2 years past his original draft year. And he was a guy that was found by Frank Musil on the Sabres staff, who's based out in Eastern Europe. He found him out in the Czech Republic, and he's like, hey, listen, you got to get this guy. And he told Jason Botterill, the GM at the time, he's like, listen, I believe that this guy's going to be a player. Sure enough, they draft him. And, he had pretty rough injury, I want to say early last season. So by the time he came back, it was, he was strong, he was feeling good. And then you're like, all right, this guy can play. This guy can go a little bit. And, sure enough, he scores tonight. Listen, he does a lot of his damage around the net, and that's exactly where he was tonight, because Jost rips one. I don't know if it got tipped or it got deflected and it went off the end boards, but it went off the end boards right to Rousek at the side of the net. Easy peasy, just slam it home.
But you're right. He was there. I watched the replay several times. He really battled to get in position to get that puck. You know what I mean? It was an easy goal once it got to his stick, but it was good work to get himself into position, kind of weaving in and out of this game with a couple other Sabre points. Well, obviously he played because Tage Thompson did not on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the kid played well enough? They play again Friday. Let's assume Tage is back in the lineup. Do you think he gets another look, or do you think he goes back to Rochester now, assuming that Tage is good to play? Because obviously Jordan Greenway didn't play tonight.
Yeah, he's still banged up.
Hinostroza. Yeah, so I don't know.
Just came back from personal. He was away for personal reasons. I wonder. Don's been pretty good about guys that score. They tend to stay in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, his first game, he's in there because Thompson's hurt, and you're like, okay, well, what do you do now? And I know everybody in the fan base. I know exactly who they want out of the lineup. They keep Rousek in. And they're just like, I know who they're asking to come out of the lineup. I know exactly who it is. It's very easy to pick out. You wear 71. Like, that's it. Some people were kind of mad at Middlestat again tonight. Listen, he hadn't played. You're telling a guy to go from left wing on the third line to centering the top line in the one of the top lines in the NHL. Chill the frig out. Like it's gonna.
He rang that post late. No, he rang that post late
too.
That,
like caught the inside of the post too, like the cruelest of posts. But I'm positive Olofsson's the guy everybody wants to come out. And everybody's been yelling about get Kulik up here. Guys, listen, we watched how they handled Peterka and Quinn last year. You're not seeing Kulik this year. Rousek gets the call this year because he's 23. Like, you got to kind of know what you got, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And,
so, okay.
maybe you give him a little bit more run. I don't know. I didn't really like the way Olofsson played tonight. The last few games, mind you, I'm watching him a little bit closer just to see what the hell's going on with him, because there's something's up. You know what's going. You see the numbers and you're kind of like, what is this guy doing? And there were a couple things tonight where I'm like, what? Like saying out loud in the press box, what are you doing? Like, it's frustrating. Which for him, it's all in his head. But I don't know. You could make a pretty good case that you could keep Rousek in there, but. I mean, they can make it a normal recall. You don't have to worry about cap space. You can keep as many guys up as you want as long as you're under the cap. They're 30 million under the cap, so who gives a shit?
Right. But, I think Olofsson is a guy who I mean, it'll be another conversation for another day, but I look at this team as constructed right now, and then I look at some of their top prospects, and it's hard to envision this team having, Olofsson having a future with this team. So
it's crazy to say because he's got 26 goals.
I know.
Like, you're just kind of like, yeah, this guy scores 26 this year. I don't know if he's got a space in this team. Like, it's wild.
I know, it's crazy. You